The Mississippi Secession Declaration is much shorter than the other two, far less wordy in a lot of ways. So it makes it kind of easier to read. By the time they're getting this again, remember that the South Carolina secession document really kind of lays out the legal definition. The other documents are less well defined. I mentioned that the Texas secession document is really a difference of opinion, right? I mentioned I called it a rant more than anything else. And I think the Mississippi secession document is somewhat similar to that. It's a whole lot of, I don't like how you're treating my friends, so I'm going to join my friends, that kind of thing. And notice that the Mississippi Secession Declaration says, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Its labor supplies the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce of the earth. In other words, this idea that economically slavery is essential, and that they really don't understand the attack on slavery, right? And so that's what they keep saying. Lots of references to the defense of slavery documents, if you will, talking about biological imperatives, that kind of thing. Make some complaints about. They go back to the Ordinance of 1787, which really has to do with the fact that the federal government controls how territories are organized. I'm not sure why they're making this claim exactly. This seems a bit of a stretch. But again, this is their kind of attempt to reach back into history to kind of strengthen their foundation. This is something the state of Texas doesn't try to do. But Mississippi absolutely tries to do it. I just don't think they do it very well. They talk about the kind of the territory acquired from France because of kind of this 1820 compromise where they drew the line so that a lot of the Louisiana Purchase was not allowed to have slaves. They complain about Texas being the way it was seized from Mexico and kind of took parts of Texas and kind of separated it off. This has to do with part of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and the Gadsden Purchase, and later on some of the negotiations with the state of Texas as far as assuming its debt and that kind of thing. So again, I'm not sure why Mississippi is making this their fight, but that's what they're doing. And then goes on to say that the right of property in slaves, and that they're basically the United States government is not kind of supporting that right. It's not letting new slave states into the Union, seeks to extinguish slavery, trample the equality of the South. Basically, they're denying the 1850 Fugitive Slave Law, which isn't exactly what's happening. I think I mentioned that the 1850 Slave Law is a law that some of the states in the North find morally reprehensible, so they don't enforce it. Very much in the same way that the Alien and Sedition Acts were regarded, or even the attempt with the tariff, in 1832. It advocates Negro equality socially and politically, and promotes an insurrection and incendiarism. So again, you see kind of a similarity between the Texas document and the Mississippi document in that, this idea that equality or rights for African Americans up north is going to promote kind of, crazy, promote violence down south. And of course that's not indicated here. It's enlisted its press, its pulpit, and its schools. So all these institutions are against them. I don't know that that's the case. Not really. They're obviously just kind of handpicking certain examples. It has made combinations and formed associations. I'm not sure they're talking about emancipation. I think they're referring to like the Underground Railroad and stuff, which, as we know, is not a nationally recognized government or government agency and that kind of thing. And it seeks not to elevate or support the slave, but to destroy his present condition without providing a better solution. I'm not sure why that seems like a bit of a stretch to me. And again, talking about breaking every compact, that reference to this agreement. that it designs to ruin their economy, that kind of thing. And then, of course, that the government is now under the control of the Republicans, is one of their big complaints, and that they have no choice. That if they submit to this, then they're going to lose their rights, and that this is the big problem. So, of the three secession documents you have in front of you, the Mississippi one's probably the most fundamental. It's the easiest, doesn't give a whole lot of detail. Like I said, the South Carolina one's probably intellectually and legally the strongest of the three. Texas kind of gives you more of an insight into the mindset. And so I think between these three secession documents, you get an idea not only of what the arguments for secession were, but also kind of how the logic reinforces itself, how one secession document shapes the next secession document, and that sort of thing. So it's very important to kind of recognize that this kind of thinking for secession is it's taking the same core facts and just recycling them multiple different times and various types of wording. That's why you see the same idea over and over again. So it's kind of like I said, those zombie statistics that we know aren't necessarily accurate or they're problematic, but they keep popping up and people keep using them to justify their opinions. They're not exactly the strongest argumentation, probably because the argumentation is weak. We'll be talking about that when we get to Lincoln's inaugural speech. So I'm going to stop this here, and I'm going to cover kind of the resources issue, and then we'll be looking at the three other speeches.